Okay, so let's just start with this. An organism is a complete living thing. You are an organism. Animals and plants are organisms. Even the mold that grows on old bread is an organism. All organisms have some things in common. These things that they have in common are what make them different from non-living things. So I'm going to go over 6 things that every single living thing has to fit into. So, first thing is that all living things grow and develop. Living things are able to grow, maintain, and often repair themselves. Plants grow by using sunlight, water, and nutrients. And they make new leaves and stems. People and animals, we grow by eating food. And we turn that food into energy and our body uses that. So all living things have to grow and develop. They start as very young, they develop, and they become mature or adult, and then eventually you will pass on and the new generation will continue life here on earth. Okay, the other thing that every living thing must do, every living thing must reproduce. So every living thing has to make more of itself. Living things don't just appear out of nowhere. During the creation at the very beginning, yes, God did create plants and animals and humans without using this process, but now He has put into place reproduction. So you can see here trees make more trees by dropping seeds, and the seeds eventually become a young plant. Cats, for example, will also reproduce and make more cats. So that is another thing that every single living thing must do. It must reproduce. The third thing every living thing must do, to be considered alive, you must do this thing. You must respond to your environment. When an animal senses that it is in danger, it can respond. Sometimes the animal will run away. Sometimes the animal will take up a defensive posture, like this rattlesnake. This rattlesnake is rattling its rattle to let you know if you get any closer, it will bite you. Also, plants respond. As you can see in this picture, this plant is stretching out toward the sun. It's responding to where the sun is in order to get more of it. Next thing that every living thing must do. Every living thing has to use energy to be considered alive. You and plants and animals will always use energy. Even when you're sleeping, you are still using energy. Even when you are resting, you are still using energy. You might not be moving your arms and legs around, but your heart is still pumping. Your brain is still functioning. And the only time when you will no longer need energy is when you are no longer alive. The next thing that every single living thing must do, it must be made out of cells. And that happens to be what is also known as the cell theory. The cell theory just means that every living thing is made out of cells, and those things that are not alive are not made out of cells. So in 1665, there was a man named Robert Hooke, and he was an English scientist. And he examined a piece of cork, and he noticed that there were these small empty chambers that he called cells. You can see the picture in the bottom right corner is what he saw. And what he actually discovered was what we call cells today. But if they were alive, there would be something inside of those cells. As you know from your 3D model, there are actual little parts that are inside of a living cell. Once the cell is no longer alive, it's empty, as you can see in the bottom right. In 1938, 2 scientists from Germany got together, and they found that all living things were made out of cells. And they decided to call this thing the cell theory. And even today, we still call it the cell theory. The theory remains the same, that every living thing is made out of cells, and those things that are not made out of cells are not alive. Okay, the last thing I want to show you. There was a microscope used to look at the piece of cork that showed that early scientist that there were empty cells that he was looking at, and that what eventually would be called the cell theory, that all living things are made out of cells. Well, he used a microscope, not like the one on the left, but like this one actually. This is the microscope that he would have used to see all of this. A microscope, of course, is just an instrument that magnifies objects hundreds or thousands of times. Many people think that someone from Holland invented the first microscope, and that's the one I've circled in yellow. About 100 years later, the second one was invented, and that was invented by someone else in Holland. And this one was created by grinding and polishing lenses to make them more and more powerful. This scientist that invented this, his name was Anton von Leeuwenhoek, and he would look at different creatures in drops of water, and he would call them animalcules. Animalcules. It's not a molecule, but an animalcule is what he would call them. Okay. Well, now it's your turn. You can go ahead and read over pages 80 to 84. And then when you go to Google Classroom, you'll find the form called page 84, numbers 1 through 4. Fill out the form, and you will need this video if you would like, or you can go back to your book as much as you like, and then fill out that form. Thanks for watching.